to see like the birth of NASCAR just grow from like the 50s. It's just like I'd be very interested to see how that worked. Like just like working from the ground, building it from the ground up. I think be very interesting.
Absolutely.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into NASCAR By The Numbers. We've got everybody here. We've got Armany all the way. I don't know where he's at on everybody else's screen. On my screen, he's all the way to the right. And we got Ben, the NASCAR guy, joining us again. Ben back in the house today to talk some racing. We were actually, if you caught on the previous conversation, we were talking about like if we could go back to a NASCAR season and rewatch it. That maybe we didn't see, or we just any of the seasons from from 48 to now we go. So they were giving some takes. I will say this before we start talking about Daytona. One moment that I wish I could go back and see live, even though I've never been a big Dale Sr. fan, I would want to see what it was like in real time for him to win the 98 500. Like how big a deal it was for the fans, for him, for everybody around. Because I imagine, I remember where I was at. It was a freshman in college. It was orientation week. I literally just moved into college for the first time. Or actually, it might have been, I guess it would be a different orientation because at Winthrop, you go for for a couple of days in the summer just to kind of get you acclimated. And then you go back home for another month or so. And then you move into school. And so LeBron finally won his first championship my first night at college orientation. And I remember the moment of he finally won a championship. So I imagine it's that moment Dale Sr. finally won the 500. That's a big deal. So that'd be pretty cool. But obviously, keeping it with the Daytona theme, last night was the Coke Zero Sugar 400 from Daytona International Speedway. Also, last race of the regular season. So you guys got to watch the full race. I got to watch probably the last 25, 30 laps because I was obviously working at the dirt track last night. So I did get to see the finish and all that kind of stuff. Didn't get to hear it with all the audio and stuff, so I was literally just watching a screen with cars. So lay it out. I heard a lot of people on Twitter said it was a very good race. What did y'all think? What were some key moments from last
night? Key moments. It was a pretty tame race. Going into it, I expected it to be I'm not sure if either you watched the Xfinity race, absolute wreckfest. 9 cars left, and I hate seeing a super speedway race like that, but I had that feeling. It had the energy, it had the hype. What is someone in a front row car going to do or Ricky Stenhouse, anyone who hadn't won is going to come up and try to do something crazy. And it had such a calm effect. The second stage was all strategy. There was 4 different packs around the entire track until with about 5 to go. So I think teams really tried to play for that final stage and put themselves in the best position to try to get the win, which was a little bit surprising in the way of the calmness of the race. Truly, that was one of my biggest takeaways.
What'd you think, Armani?
Yeah, it was a tame race, I will say that, and it was a lot more strategy than I thought was going to be in this race. I thought we were just going to see everyone just throw the Hail Mary for all 160 laps, but you saw maybe the first 20 or 30 laps, they were, working the train up top, all cars up on the top, and then you saw a lot of strategy, especially in stage 2, where the Chevys pit at they pit at a certain time, then the Fords pit at a certain time, and you saw that Chevy. I remember texting Will this, where it's the Chevy group come from 30 seconds on back to catch up to the Ford, and it was weird because especially when you're paying attention to the playoff bubble, who's earning stage points here and there. It kind of went back and forth between William Byron and Matt DiBenedetto because Jimmy Johnson finished top 5 in both stages, and then stage 1, DiBenedetto scored points, but not Byron, and stage 2 was the reverse. So you had a lot of points gains. Then you had people like Eric Jones, who was in a must-win situation after stage 1, and you had people like Tyler Reddick up front, Ryan Newman, John Hunter Nemechek, Bubba Wallace. I mean, there was really no point. It was slow. It was a slow build-up towards the end, and when the end came, you really didn't know who would be in, who would be out.
Absolutely. It was nerve-wracking, to say the least.
Yeah, I remember even just sitting there for the last 20 or so laps. I will say this. The Cup race, I don't think it didn't become exactly what I think people were thinking. It got close, obviously. And I think, honestly, this is what you actually needed it to be. It didn't need to be 30 cars crash and, there's 7 cars left on track that can win the thing and all that. But, again, I didn't get to watch the first 2 stages, but it seemed rather tame from some of the things that I had heard. Where we thought people were going to be raking at the end of stages and raking here and raking that. But like all the contenders were still left with 10, 15 to go. Still had an opportunity. Obviously, we did get it ended up being the big one. A couple of them really. Tyler Reddick with the block of the century, which me and Armani were talking about earlier. Like, as bad of a move as that is, like, I love the move still just because that's exactly what you're asking the driver to do. Like, it's a boneheaded move, and it cost him a spot. It cost Kyle Busch a race. It cost a bunch of people a lot of things. But at the end of the day, that's what NASCAR is wanting. That's what this race is forcing them to do. This is your chance. It's like 8, 9 to go. I mean, here you go. Here's your shot to win it. So, what did y'all think, though? I mean, obviously, we got down to the end. We had some wrecks and stuff like that. And I remember watching it when it happened. Jimmy Johnson gets tangled up in the big one. You knew at that point it was officially over. The chance or the opportunity was pretty much over, unless something just crazy happened to the 21 car there late. Because, I mean, it pretty much at that point in the race, it was whoever finishes ahead of the other, DiBenedetto or Johnson is going into the playoffs. Whoever finishes second, they're done. So, Armani, I'll let you react to this because obviously you've been a Jimmy Johnson fan for quite some time. And Jimmy, in his final season, misses the playoffs. How do you feel about it?
I think my name says it all.
So happy.
Yeah, I'm a happy boy. You would have seen me on Twitter last night. The wreck happened, and I kind of just stood staring at the TV for like good 5-10 minutes, just like, yep, sounds about right.
I will say, as tragic as it is, absolutely tragic. And like he was so close. If he didn't basically finish last for 2 races, or easy to say he's in. But I said this last season, it takes so much pressure off that entire team, specifically Cliff Daniels, to not try to, like, who cares? You have 7, you don't need an 8th. Like, it would be nice, it'd be great, you'd be the greatest technically, but we don't need that. We want to see you win. We want to see some success. We want a reason to celebrate. And like, regardless of what happened last night, we have 10 more opportunities to try.
Yep.
Yeah. There's also, because you watch it, then I was paying attention so hard to William, but like, they were talking about his tire, like there was something wrong with his tire. So I'm like, they're going to pit. He's going to fall back. Jimmy's going to make it. And then he didn't pit. And then I'm like, okay, he's going to crash. And then I saw DiBenedetto was falling back. Like, DiBenedetto was like 17 points good. And then he just kept dropping from the pack. I'm like, come on, just drop a little more. And when the checkered flag flew, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's over. It's a damn shame for Jimmy Johnson because it's like he was especially doing so well. Like, it seemed like the black car curse was actually going away. 3 straight top 10, 2 top 5s, and then Matt Kenseth body slams him. Door slams him.
So glad you said Matt Kenseth. Interesting theory. Interesting. Let's say Kyle Larson and still in that 42 car through the season, nothing had happened. Maybe Kyle Larson had a win. Is Kyle Larson in the same exact position as Matt Kenseth was at this race to come up and hit him? I know it's stupid BS that I'm just making up to like make myself feel better.
That's actually interesting to think back. Like, what if Larson never, had the bombshell? What if Jimmy never missed those races? What if Brian Newman never, got injured at Daytona? Mm-hmm. We could see a very different playoff picture.
Yeah. How about this? How about if Jimmy doesn't get DQ'd at Charlotte? How about if Jimmy doesn't wreck at Arlington about to win stage 1? Look, just that stage was 10 more points. He would have had 10 more points because he would have won the stage. Think about that. I mean, I think he ended up losing by 12 or 13. But
he's out. He's out. It happened. The past is the past. All right.
And now all of a sudden the past is the past. And your boy John Hunter didn't get it done either, but I was cheering for him. So obviously, the other note to it, because I mean, don't get me wrong. I think if you would have never found me mid 2000s, late 2000s, man, all I wanted to see was the 48 car have problems. All most of us wanted to see was the 48 car have problems. You're like, God, I'm so tired of him winning. But now it's like the tides have turned, and you're like, damn, Jimmy Johnson's really not going to be in the postseason again. Like, it's not even about the postseason; it's his farewell tour, and nothing has went right his farewell tour. He hasn't won. He's had to miss races. There's been no fans, and he misses the postseason. Nothing has gone right. But on the flip side to it, and something that I'm going to be honest, it killed my vibe a little bit of it is who ended up winning the race because, it was one of those awkward things where you wanted to see somebody just crazy win the race. And I'm telling you, I was telling Armani I had a driver that I thought was really close. And if certain cards would have fallen right, I think could have got there. Bubba Wallace was flying to end that race. That dude I don't know what was going on with his car. Was he like that all night long?
Not really.
I have no memories of him. Maybe he was just patient all day and just waited. But
most of the night when I at least seen some laps, he was 15th, 20th. But he made the charge to the front there. And then, of course, Logano had to just, throw a block. And then that charge in there. And then even with the wrecked car, he comes all the way back and is flying around the outside with another lap to go in that race. I think the 43 car gives them he's either going to wreck or do something and try to be there.
And he had some aggressive help behind him. He was working with Ty Dillon a lot towards the end of that race, who was making crazy moves. So he would have got a push, absolutely. And I think there are a lot of drivers who would have just pushed him or heavily helped him get that victory if they were in a good position themselves.
It would have definitely been nuts right there. But William Byron scores his first ever win. I know all of us are pretty much like it. Well, it's about time. It's only almost the end of year 3 in an Hendrick car. But what do you guys think? Did it kill the vibe of the race at all? And what do you think about William Byron finally getting a cup win? The 24 car finally wins since 2015.
Can't say that I'm disappointed because it's cool. It's in a first-time winner. You can't hate it. Clutch moment, low-key clutch as hell. Coming in, basically, he didn't have to win, but they gave themselves the best opportunity to go forward. And bonus points, they got playoff points. They're in 9th in the standing, so really helped themselves out. I don't think, as I'm a diehard Jimmy too, Armani, been my whole entire life, it didn't take away anything from the race, being a fan, because, you want to see the teammates succeed and you want to see the best outcome possible, regardless if maybe your driver finishes last or first. So I don't think it took away anything seeing Byron win. I think it made it interesting. It made the postseason have a little more flair to it, maybe a little more power for Chevy and Hendrick and whatever the hell they got going forward for themselves next year. So I think it's going to be good. Good to see them, or at least they got 3 teams in there. So hopefully they can at least try to make the round of 12, all 3 of them. That's the goal, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm happy for Byron. He's really struggled in, especially this year. It seemed like they took a step downward. Really, especially after that first race at Dover, it looked like he had a 26-point cushion over Johnson. And then after that race, he kind of just, threw it all away. But then that team rallied back up in the second race at Dover, and then, they finally put it all together. Yeah, it's a plate race. You could talk about, what, like Will said, it's not indicative of, how you're going to run at 1.5 miles, but a win's a win. It's still going to be in the record book. So good for Byron. It should give that team a lot of confidence, especially going into the postseason, especially because now we're going to be going to tracks where they've been at before, especially pre-pandemic, like Las Vegas and Phoenix. That should really, maybe we'll see a little bit more from the Chevy camp, and especially from Hendrick, team, because especially pre-pandemic, Byron was the weak link, I think, but he wasn't that much far off. He wasn't that much farther off from his teammates. So this, I think, will give him a boost of confidence. And hey, one winless streak is still going, unfortunately, but another winless streak that no one's really talking about has been broken. Chad Canals. He ends his 3-year winless streak.
Interesting. I never really even thought of that until you just said it, but absolutely.
Clearly, it was Chad all those years. That's what made the difference. Chad.
I do.
But it's cool. The 24 isn't the 24 to me as much anymore because I was a diehard Gordon fan. But to see Byron get that win was a cool moment. Like I said, my whole perception of the race was off because I couldn't really listen to the race. I only got to see the last portion of the race. There is definitely a difference when you've sat there and watched all 400 miles and the storylines develop and you see everything happen in front of you. I wish I could have seen all of that laid out, but it's still big for William Byron. I don't know if this is going to necessarily be a momentum builder because it's just, literally a week ago we hadn't ran the Sunday race yet. A week ago we were like, this team is about to be done. They're holding right here in front of our eyes. And, a week later, they're in the playoffs and they have a win. So we'll see. Big deal for them, though. And obviously, again, the good note, Chad Canals obviously gets his first win since 2017 as well. So, Chad is I think they said Chad is undefeated in being in the playoffs. He's been in the playoffs every year. I didn't remember. Did Willie B make it last year playoffs? Well, hold it.
Willie Byron, yeah, he made it in 2019. He finished 11th in points.
Yep. I remember that. So, yeah, Chad Knaus. Maybe Chad Knaus is the real goat of NASCAR. He's the one figuring these things out. But
I mean, he looked pretty shaky.
that's why it took.
Jimmy.
Yeah, that's why it took like what 23 races, 25 races for Byron to get a top 5.
That was his first top 5, yeah.
No, this was his second. His first top 5 was the second Dover.
last week. Yep. Last week.
What the hell?
Yeah. So, obviously, the last thing we were going to talk about before we move on to the actual playoffs, because that'll be the most of the show today is just playoff predictions. We'll make this pretty quick. So, I think a lot of us, including myself, are going to just kind of – when NASCAR first announced Daytona as the finale, my first two thoughts were it sucks it needs to be on July 4th, and it seems really gimmicky to determine the playoffs. Someone, and it's going to happen one of these years, but someone somewhere is going to do something stupid. In reality, you could argue it happened last night. Someone's going to do something stupid, and it's going to ruin somebody's season.
Maybe Reddick's move will actually stick next year.
The big thing was, when Hamlin and Logano got into it last night, that kind of spurred the big one that Timmy got involved in and changed a bunch of outcomes in that. But are you guys sold? Should Daytona be the regular season finale moving forward?
Easy to say yes, because like everyone or like the average fan, like I could tell all my friends that don't really mess with NASCAR as much as me, hey, watch this because you'll guarantee some entertainment for a little bit. So it's easy to say most ratings, best business opportunity is to keep it. Does that mean it's going to have the best opportunities? Does NASCAR want the controversy at moments? Probably. So it seems like I think it went well enough last night that it's going to stay at least for the close future. In 5 years, I can't tell you the same, but I think the drivers, the teams, NASCAR did good enough job last night across the board, regardless of a few controversial wrecks, that it didn't warrant anything to take it away from the spot.
I think just because NASCAR already has so many gimmicks that, having Daytona as a season finale, I think it was just like, just add another, there's so many gimmicks already in NASCAR, with the playoff system, with stages and whatever, that it's just to build intrigue. And yeah, you can argue, okay, should this be a motorsport? Should it not whatsoever? But I was skeptical on this first, but after last night, I'm all for it, honestly. We haven't really seen that build up to who is going to make it in the playoffs in years. I mean, from 2004 to 2017, it was Richmond who was the season finale, and you really, besides the teams that were in the top, besides when it was in the top 10, and 2013, you never really had that intrigue, like who's going to be in, who's going to be out. When the 2 years it was the Brickyard, you never really had anything either, because it's the Brickyard. You can't pass it for life dependent on it. So I think Daytona as the season finale, I like it. I like the intrigue that it builds. Like I said, I kind of liked how the race played out, where it's it wasn't just crazy at the beginning. I think if they're not all going to play like this, but I think a majority will play like this, where it's slow and then it'll just keep ramping up and up and up towards the end. I think if that is a consistent thing, I think the NASCAR just hit a home run with adding Daytona to the season finale.
It was, even for me, I didn't get to see pre-race. I really wish, and this may be something. The reason I didn't take last night off from the track, because I could have, was we had open wheel modifieds. I've never got to see open wheel modifieds ran, so I didn't want to miss the first time I've ever been to this track. You never may get to see him again if I went and watch. But this may be a race I'm just going to say I got to stay at home. But I really wish I could have sat down in my living room and enjoyed pre-race and stuff, because the build-up to this race, I'm going to be honest, it may have had – it's not the Daytona 500, but it may have had just as much build-up to, this is an event, something special is going to happen. And I'm going to be honest, this ironically, just as much was on the line last night as it was for a race like the Daytona 500. When you win the Daytona 500, at that point you don't even care about playoff shit, because it's just race number one. But you go in the record books and the history books of winning a Daytona 500. For a lot of people, it instantly makes you a legend. It makes you relevant in the sport for many years to come just to win that race. Last night, you're back at Daytona for something that's just as important, if not more important. I'm going to be in the playoffs, and if I'm going to run for a championship, I have to perform tonight. And I'm all for Daytona. I mean, Daytona has single-handedly become the most important track on the schedule because you look at both of its dates, 500 and now the playoffs are on the line. So I think I saw Danny B put it out there on Twitter. I think me and him were very similar in how we thought. It was really rough at it at first. I liked the July 4th weekend. I didn't want to, I'm just waiting for – it's kind of the joke. I'm just waiting for NASCAR to say we're going to run for a championship at Talladega, which would be terrible. It had that feeling to me like, okay, so we're just going to full-on go entertainment here. And don't get me wrong, there's times that makes sense, right? NASCAR is an entertainment. We don't watch these cars. I mean, yes, we like racing, but if it wasn't fun and entertaining, we wouldn't watch it. We live for those moments. And last night for 400 miles was a moment. The entire race means something. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm sold on it. I think NASCAR could really – I think the Coke Zero 400 – I grew up, it was a Pepsi 400. It's always been not a crown jewel, but it's kind of a borderline. Like any win at Daytona is pretty much, you might say it's a crown jewel. This race can really – I guess to win it's not necessarily a crown jewel, but to survive that race and put yourselves in the playoffs moving forward – it makes it a special race on the year. And I told one of my buddies who casually watch NASCAR every now and then, I said, turn on your TV. I have no clue if he did, but I said, this is the race that you want to watch. If you just want to watch, if you want to understand what us NASCAR fans enjoy, at moments like this, when everything is on the line, anything can happen. They could wreck at any moment. Anybody can win. That is what it's all about. So I'm sold on it. Hopefully they stay forward at this point. I would hate that, I'm assuming they're not going to do that for just 1 year. I'm sure it's going to stay there, but really good idea. And so I'm happy with it moving forward. So now we're looking at the playoffs. Obviously, we've got our 16 drivers. Now we know who in. Obviously, Jimmy Johnson is not. Sorry, Armani. Just wanted to beat a dead horse there for you. But our 16 drivers battling for the playoffs. No surprise, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Austin Dillon, Cole Custer, Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, Kyle Busch, who, and by the way, I'm reading this in order of what the grid is right now. Kyle Busch is 14th on the grid. And Matt DiBenedetto sneaks in on point last night, making his first ever. We've got 2 drivers making their first playoff appearance, obviously Cole Custer and DiBenedetto. So before we make predictions, just what do you guys think about this field? I feel like it's stacking up to be pretty well. There's not, we were talking before because we're making predictions in the next few minutes. You have a few guys you think are going to be out early, but you can make an argument for everyone to make at least it through the first round. What do y'all think about the field we have in general, the 16 drivers?
I think we talked about earlier how it's one of the more competitive fields, and you just said that everyone has a case to make it out of at least the round of 16. It's nice to have a rookie in there, regardless of who it was. We had a stacked class this year. To have someone of those 4 or 5 drivers represent, I think, is nice. Just to have a little mix in. I look at a lot of these names, and I could put each of these. I could have 1,000 different brackets, and each of them in the top 8. So I think it's easy to say the 16 drivers is too big sometimes, and that we should go back to 10 or 12 and make it more genuine of who we want competing for it. But there are only a few drivers on this list that I could say, you know what, they're definitely not going to win the championship or don't have an honest shot at putting themselves in a position. And I could say 11 drivers on this field have an actual shot to bring home a trophy. So I'm stoked for it. I think it's one of the better fields, maybe just because recent and, it's fresh, right? It was yesterday we figured it out, and there's a lot of storylines going in, but I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a great 10 weeks. I think we could see a lot of the Harvick Hamlin going through still, still dominating, but I think some other drivers are going to say, hey, I'm here too.
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on it. It's going to be, you can make an argument as to, why any of these drivers can make past around the 12. You can also make an argument as to why they could possibly be eliminated very early on, especially because we've seen it as of recently. Certain championship favorites are, favorites to make a deep run. They don't make a deep run. Last year, 2018, there's many examples of it. So I think this might be one of, if not the most unpredictable playoff fields we got, especially because this new playoff schedule is very driver, focused. When you got tracks like Darlington, Bristol is now in there. Martinsville is now a playoff, is now, the end of the round of 8. Obviously, you got the Roval there. You obviously always got the wild card in Talladega. So this could possibly be one of, if not the most unpredictable playoffs that we've seen in quite a long time, if not ever.
Biggest thing this field could have that can knock it is it's really top heavy. And by top heavy, the top two. I mean, really third on back, I can't tell you what the next 10 weeks is going to hold for them. The top two have been so good that obviously we don't share each other's predictions. We don't know each other's predictions, but I would not be shocked that when we get to the end of these predictions over the next 30 minutes that the 11 and the 4 are heavily involved in who is going to be involved at Phoenix in the season. But third on for 14 drivers, I have no clue what the next 10 weeks could hold. I mean, you could have some shockers. You could have every year there's somebody big that has a problem. There's guys that had problems early and somehow work their way out of it. I mean, every year it's the same thing, but it's completely different. And so, it'll be interesting to see who those drivers are. But obviously, we are here to make predictions. That's what we said. We kind of have our hands forced. Me and Armani were originally going to try to pull this back a week, but we actually have a really special guest that we're all going to hopefully have here next week. So stay tuned for that announcement. We wanted to pull, make predictions right here. It's fresh. So we will kick it off. Obviously, we have 16 drivers now. We're going to move in round one starting this week for the Southern 500 at Darlington. Darlington for the first time is in the postseason, opening the postseason for throwback weekend. Richmond's week 2, and then Bristol, who hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be there. Bristol also making its first playoff appearance. It's capping off round 1. So we'll start with Ben. Who are your first 4 out? And give us a couple of tidbits on why you have them leaving.
So one of the first drivers that I'm going to say, just pretty easy. I feel like DiBenedetto can't. I mean, not that he can't, but I'll just act against him. He's not going to have many points going through. Barely made it in. If the 48 doesn't wreck, who knows if he does. So I don't think they have the greatest momentum. Like Dover, I'm pretty sure they had a terrible weekend, like 2 top 20s at the best is what they did. Lost mad points, and I don't think they have the momentum going forward. There are 3 other basically definitely Penske cars in the field. He's basically the 4th, so I think easy to say that he's going to get the least attention paid to him, but I don't think that he doesn't have the skill. Could sneak a win at Bristol. I mean, he's got some good opportunities ahead of him. I'm not sure how he did at Darlington earlier this season. But he's definitely one of the few that I don't think could have a good first round. Another one, I'm going to say Byron, just because I'm salty. No, I'm kidding. But I don't think that the Hendrick or Chase is going to carry on. So I think they want to win a championship. I think that not that they got lucky they won Daytona, but they didn't put themselves in the best opportunity going into this race again, like the 21. So I don't think there's they have momentum now, but I don't think it's going to carry on. There's much better teams out there that could have better weekends for sure. My third driver I have out is unfortunately another Hendrick car. I don't think Bowman has turned anything on since his engine in the last race, man. This guy can't do anything. This guy, you tweeted out that AD has a better average finish than him?
Yep.
I mean, Austin Dillon, not the guy you see up there, has 1 win, and it was a strategy win, and Bowman dominated early parts of the season, and it's strange to see them kind of fall apart this late, but I don't see any momentum going forward. They had a great weekend at Darlington, or what was it? Sunday, Wednesday race they did back then. So I think he could pull some stuff together there, but not the strongest round for him. I don't see him moving on. And my last one that I had out was unfortunately Cole Custer. He low-key been turning it on. Like he's kind of like an 11th place car the past couple weeks. Definitely been hanging towards that top 10, showing that he has speed and that he can keep up with at least a couple of his teammates. But I don't think that the experience he has is going to pay for it. Xfinity, they race at Richmond, correct? Throughout their schedule? Or have they passed? Meaning, like, has Cole Custer ever been to this track? Probably, correct?
Yes, I think he's been
there.
Yeah, you do. Custer has a win at Richmond and Xfinity, I believe, last year.
Okay, so betters his case to maybe move on, but I just don't think that it's his season. I mean, have we ever had a rookie make the playoffs before? As how far have they gone? If we have, I'm not quite sure on that.
Chase Elliott made it to the round of 12 in 2016.
Yep.
Okay. So, hey, I mean, could move on, could show some rookie class, some power going forward, but I just think there are much better opportunities for other drivers to go out and try to prove their legacy while he's just starting one.
Yeah. So my predictions, I got. At first, it was kind of, tame, which is kind of weird for me to have a tame playoff prediction. However, the more I'm thinking about it, I am going to throw a wild card in there. The first one I got out is Matt DiBenedetto. like you said, they have no playoff points. They really have no momentum going for them. Dover was terrible. The road course at Daytona was terrible, and they just barely squeezed into the. Like I said, if Jimmy didn't wreck, he probably would be on the outside. So I don't think the Benedetto's got a lot of momentum. Bristol, I mean, we got Bristol around so we can make something happen there. I don't think he really did anything at Darlington, and Richmond isn't really one of his better tracks, so I got the Benedetto out. Another one I got out is Austin Dillon. It's weird because for the first, 2/3 of the regular season, he was actually doing pretty good. He was 14th in points for most of the season. But ever since his Texas win, I'm not counting when he missed the road course for COVID, he's just been, kind of average Austin Dillon, running 18th to 20th. So I think that unless, I don't think he did very good at a lot of these tracks. So he didn't really do good at Darlington, Bristol, Richmond. These aren't really good tracks for him. So I think Austin Dillon, he's going to miss it out. Another one that's going to miss it out is like you said, William Byron. He had his first top 5 was the second Dover race. That was his first top 5 of the season. And yeah, they got the win at Daytona, but it's Daytona. Anything can happen there. I mean, he won stage 1 at Darlington. He won stage 1 at Darlington for the first Darlington race, when Jimmy Johnson decided to, try to take out Chris Buescher and takes out himself because why not? So Richmond, I think, is pretty decent at it, and we haven't really seen him do too much at Bristol. So this could be a decent round for him. I think Byron, out of everyone out, I think Byron probably has the best. The second best shot to make it in out of the 4 I got out. And the next one I got out is Kyle Busch. I got Kyle Busch out in the first round.
There it is.
Oh man.
Let me explain. It seems like Kyle Busch has a DNF every 2 or 3 races he runs. He runs into some kind of issue. Kyle Busch has 3 playoff points in. What's going to happen? He's probably going to get a top 5. I could see that, but Kyle Busch is going to get a top 5 in one of these races. But then one race is going to happen where he's going to get into a wreck. I don't know if me and Will ever talked about this, but it seems like every time there's a Bristol race, Kyle Busch always ends up wrecked on the first lap.
Mm-hmm.
Usually he's able to, make a comeback, but especially because there's going to be more on the line at Bristol. If that happens to Kyle Busch, I don't think he's going to be able to run up through the field as much as he is, because guys aren't going to cut him a break. It's just because where Kyle Busch is at, I think that team just isn't there. I think they're way too hit or miss. He's got only 3 playoff points in the bank. If Kyle Busch could get away with DNFs in the regular season, if he has a DNF in the first round and he just runs, 8th, and especially, I have Cole Custer making it over Kyle Busch because that team has just been slowly building, and they have a little bit more playoff points in their bank. It's weird thinking that Cole Custer is ahead of the playoff grid than Kyle Busch. That is just crazy to think about. But I think Kyle Busch is just going to have one of those moments where where it just takes him out.
Well, it might see coming that early, so we'll see. We might have to make a bet on that one too, Armani. But my first 4.
No more bets.
I believe me and Ben may have the same first 4 out. So my first one out, not really first, who I have listed is the Benedetto. As much as I would like to see Dibby make a run into the playoffs, and I think Bristol is going to be the race of his life potentially because, if he can run off the emotion he ran off last year, I haven't heard anything, but there's obviously there's still buzz around the 21 car. What could happen with it next year? You never know. It's not like the Benedetto was locked and loaded 2021. I think there could be a lot of motivation for the 21 car to get a win at Bristol, but I just don't know if it happens. 16th average finish in the last 4 races for that team, and that's just not going to cut it. They're already going to have to surprise people and outrun a lot of big teams, and so they're going to need a top 10, 12 average, I think, to have a shot. And running 16th every week isn't going to do it. So the Benedetto out. Austin Dillon, it's RCR still. We could sit here right now and still probably say the better of the 2 RCR cars is not in the playoffs. Dillon, great win, but I just don't see anything changing. AD might, have a little bit of a good run at one, maybe a place like Richmond, but I just don't see them really pushing something unless a major star has a problem. I don't see them really being able to make the cut. William Byron, as much as I originally wanted to put him through to the round of 12, you can't jump on the bandwagon. It's been 2 weeks. You kind of have that feeling that it's kind of this playoff push is going to be all for nothing. It's going to be a one round and you're done. I mean, obviously it's not for nothing. You make it, but you're going to break all these Jimmy Johnson fans' hearts to be eliminated in 3 weeks. Yeah. And, it just has that feeling to it. They've kind of used their juice to make it into the postseason to get a win. I think it's just going to be the win out of their shells. And then Armani, I hate to break this to you, but Cole Custer has the worst average finish of every playoff driver in the field. And his finishes over the last 6 weeks is worse than his already worst average finish. So his average finish on the season is 19.9, worst by about 2 to 3 positions than every other driver in the playoffs. And in the last 6 weeks, he's had an average finish of 22nd. So unless the 41 team can pull some magic, I just don't see it for him. I like Cole. I'd like to see the story. Congrats on Rookie of the Year, even though it's about the dumbest way NASCAR's ever crowned a Rookie of the Year, but it's the rule.
Well,
yeah, it's pretty bad, but Cole did it. He won. He got in the playoffs, so he's Rookie of the Year. So my first 4 out to Benedetto, Custer, Dillon, and Byron. And Ben, we'll go back to you. Obviously, now we're talking about the round of 12. Who are the next 4 getting cut?
All right, it gets a little more interesting, more competitive. You could say naturally we should have 12 drivers anyway, but who cares? We're here. So first guy I had out, I think easily I could say from what I have left, Austin Dillon. Like, yeah, he could have a nice first round, get himself through, maybe have a good finish or 2 in the second round, but I still don't think. Like, he could win Talladega. Talladaga's second race of the second round, am I right? It goes Las Vegas, Talladega, Roval.
Yeah, so, Vegas, Talladega, Roval.
So I'm pretty sure he's good at Vegas as well, Austin, but I still don't think that they have the competitiveness or the speed to really make it into that final 8 drivers. So I low-key dismissing him here. Another one that I have getting out is Almirola. I think that a teammate like Boyer has been competing much better in the past few weeks. Almirola had that fire stretch he had in the summer, getting all those top 10s, top 5s. But it seems as though it's been a little bit off the past few weeks. I haven't heard Almirola's name since maybe Kansas or something around that. It's been a month or so since he's really been turning it on, had a little bit of a slump, but I think they could coast into that first round pretty nice. He won Talladega a couple years ago, so could nab another win. But I feel like that's his only way to really advance is getting that win at Talladega. I don't see the competitiveness moving forward, although, he's shown that he's super strong and can carry himself and carry that team and potentially be the second best Stewart-Haas car, but I just haven't seen it moving forward, and I think momentum means too much in the sport. So here might be 2 surprises for my next 2 out. Armani, not as much for you because one of them is Kyle Busch. I don't see him going very far. It's not been his year. Nothing's going right. I feel like if Jimmy was in William Byron's spot, you could have a similar case. Makes the first round and then gets eliminated because it's just luck. It's not been their season. And maybe being eliminated is good for Kyle Busch because then he can just go focus and win a couple of races and try to get his swag back and really try to go forward. And then the last one I have going out in the round of 12 is Ryan Blaney, another semi-inconsistent driver. I believe he made the final 8 last year. So he's put himself in a deeper position. He's been in this spot before, but two teammates that are faster than him. I don't see him being the most consistent as normal, and I don't think that he's going to make it that far. He could win that Talladega race again. He could pull off that crazy Roval mess that he had a couple years ago. But again, one of those other drivers that I think is going to have to put himself in a winning position to truly move on in the final 8.
Yeah, so the drivers I got eliminated. Kurt Busch, I got eliminated. There's too many teams I think that are better than them. Again, they have very little playoff points, so I think it's going to be an easy first round exit for them. Another one I got eliminated is Clint Boyer. Honestly, you can flip flop between Clint Boyer and Almirola, but I believe Almirola has a little bit more consistent winning speed that you could believe he can win than over Boyer. We haven't really seen Boyer have any speed that you think he can win since like the second Darlington race. Another one I got out is Alex Bowman. I believe I tweeted this before, but it's like I've never seen a driver go from being a potential championship favorite to finishing the regular season outside the top 10 in points. Bowman is just falling like a rock. I don't know what the hell happened. like he started the season so on fire, and then
Arguably
he's
a
just
top 3 driver.
yeah, he was like a top 3, top 2 driver, like a championship favorite. In some people's eyes, the lead driver at Hendrick.
Not quite.
But yeah, Bowman, like, and I see no sign of that momentum continuing. So I think he's got 2 straight top 5s, but then again, it's like Daytona. You can really just kind of write that off. So I got Bowman out. And then the other one eliminated, I kind of just traded Kyle Busch for Cole Custer, in all honesty. Cole Custer, he's a rookie. It'd be pretty cool to see another rookie make the round of 12, but I think Cole Custer just has that experience. And like I said, I think just the teams ahead of him are just going to do much better, especially as we come out to these next couple rounds where you really start seeing drivers with the better playoff points, really start to, like, shine.
Yeah, the 4 I've got are very similar to what you guys had. I feel like there's always a middle class of driver that's in the field. They're not, your Harvicks and Hamlins and Truex, but they're not, the Benedettos and all that of the world. So, they could win. They probably won't win, but you never know. But they could run top 5, top 10. So this is where it always really starts getting tricky. One of the first guys I have out is Clint Boyer. Clint has actually not been terrible. Clint is actually the 9th. I have my average finishes listed. So he has the 9th best average finish of the 16 drivers. His average finish is a 14.7. Clint's been okay. Problem is they can't win races and they can't finish off races. And so obviously you can't have that issue moving forward in the playoffs. So I think Clint's going to probably make a second round exit. Kurt Busch, it's almost like Kurt Busch is very similar to the kind of the 14. They're there, but they're not really there. Kurt's had a decent year. He has the 7th best average finish. Actually has a better average finish than a guy like Joe Logano, which I was surprised to see. But the team just doesn't have winning speed right now. I don't see them having winning speed. I don't see Chevrolet necessarily, especially Chevrolet Ganassi, having that speed right now. So I think you see Kurt hit the road in round 2. Also have Alex Bowman out. I was telling them Alex Bowman has a 17th place average finish, which is the 15th best of 16 playoff drivers. Alex Bowman simply, the way I phrase it, Alex Bowman became Alex Bowman. The beginning of the year, he had a hot run. We've seen everybody have a hot run. He had a hot run for a month, and everybody thought it was a favorite, and here we are, back down to earth. I think he can make it through the first round, but the round of 12 is going to get really, really tight, and I just don't think that team is good enough right now to beat, the Penske cars, to beat the Gibbs cars. And you start adding up Gibbs and Penske, you've already got, 6, 7 cars. There's not a lot of room. So Bowman is probably the second best car at Hendrick right now, even though performance-wise you can make an argument that 48 is probably making the case for to be the second best performance car. So Bowman gone. And then the last guy I've got is Almirola. And thank God, because I cannot stand the hashtag Almirolling, and I need that to go because that just doesn't need to be a thing. Almirola, though, does have the 5th best average finish of drivers in the postseason with a 12.7. The magic's going to continue. This is always kind of where that 10 car gets bounced. So Talladega could be a good week for him, but I just have him rolling. And now let's get it. So we're down to 8 drivers. 8 drivers left, Ben. Who do you have making your championship 4, and who do you have going home?
So start off easy. Harvick and Hamlin are moving on. Easy to say. I think we can all agree, and a majority of fans could have a similar opinion for sure. I think other than them two, there's not been a big 3. There's been a big 2 with maybe like a couple drivers you could maybe decipher in throughout the year. But I have Martin Truex is another driver going on to the Final 4. I think that he's been super strong all year. Probably the best. Denny's been the best Toyota, but Martin has finished top 5 probably the last 8 races or something along those lines. Had a crazy stretch of 3rd places, and I think he is going to absolutely move on. Let's see. My last pick that we have going on is Chase Elliott. I think that he's had a sleeper year. He's had moments of really fast and then kind of where did he go? Not in the top 5, maybe 6th, 7th, and then he'll come back and win Daytona Road Course, or he'll have a strong run. And I think that Hendrick has built a persona of preparing for the playoffs and preparing for the big moments of the sport. And I think they learned that through the 24 and the 48 back in their glory days. And I think they're going to continue that. And Chase is clearly going to be the lead horse moving forward. So why not set him up with the best opportunity to go shine the farthest, because he's your future. He's potentially the future of the sport. Most popular driver. Like, hard to find someone who doesn't like Chase Elliott unless they're just upset that day. So really, I think he's going to have one of the best shots moving forward, meaning there are 4 drivers that don't make it. So we have Joey Logano. I don't think he's been fast since COVID break, truly. Like he's been one of the better cars, but he hasn't won since COVID break. He has had a few good races in between there. You could say, hey, he could add a shot here and there, but I don't see championship winning speed out of the 22 for the remainder of this season for sure. Who else we got? Kurt Busch, probably one of the faster Chevys in the field, but I don't think he's going to make it forward. Again, there's the 4 drivers that I had picked going farther are just better than him. Like they've had a better season, and I think having a better season and having better speed at the moment is faster than any previous result you've had at a racetrack that they race at all. So the fast drivers are going to be fast at the end, and that's how it's going to go. And Kurt's fast, but Kurt ain't as fast as the 11 or the 4 or any of those guys up there. Next out, we have Brad Kay. Not a good year for Penske. He has probably been arguably the 3rd best driver in the field. If I had to pick a 3rd best driver, he would be it. But you got to have some controversy in there somehow. You got to pick some different drivers to move on. And I just don't see Brad Kay going well. I'm trying to think of Kansas, Texas, Martinsville. Brad could definitely get that Martinsville win. Had an absolute dominant performance win there, but I don't know. It's not felt like a Brad Keselowski kind of year for me. And my last driver I have out in the final 8 is Clint Bowyer. I think he has one of the most favorable schedules out of all the drivers in this field. His first round, he's a short track kind of guy. Rarely you're going to see Bowyer not finish in the top 10 at a Bristol or a Richmond. Armani, you said earlier his last best race was that Darlington race, won both stages. So there's the first round right there, extremely competitive. He has the most stage points ever at the Roval. Won plenty of fall Talladega races, and I'm blanking on the other race, Las Vegas, but he can notch up a good finish there. So I think the first 6 races for Clint Bowyer is absolutely favorable to himself, and I think it can propel him pretty far into the round of 8. But yes, my final 4 is Harvick, Hamlin, Truex, and Elliott.
My final 4 is Harvick and Hamlin, obviously. Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski. Keselowski has had he's been probably the quietest, most consistent driver all year. He got himself 3 wins, including that dominating performance at New Hampshire. He's been 3rd in points pretty much for most of the season, and it seems like Brad Keselowski, because obviously, like we know, one of the big stories coming to the season was the crew chief swaps. I think Brad Keselowski benefited the best from the crew chief swap just because he's actually worked with Jeremy Bullen before, and I think because Brad Keselowski is probably one of, if not the smartest driver in the field, and I think that really helps a young, inexperienced crew chief like Jeremy Bullen. And I think that's why you've really been seeing that 2 car just, in my opinion, they've been the best car at Team Penske. I mean, you can shuffle maybe between him and Ryan Blaney. Then again, Blaney has less wins, but I think he has more laps led. But I think Brad Keselowski, I think if he just continues what he's been doing all season, he's kind of been quiet, then occasionally he'll sneak in a win or dominate a race. I think Brad Keselowski is going to be finally the time he makes it to the Final 4 since, I believe, 2017. And then the last 2 can also go either way. I got Chase Elliott just because I trust him more than I trust the other guys I got on my list, just because we've seen that 9 car be able to clutch in the playoffs. We've seen him do it in the first round. We've seen him do it in the second round. I think we're going to see that again. Thing is, can they make it past that 3rd round? Kansas, he's won it before. Texas, it could go either way for him. And then Martinsville, he's always pretty good at. So I think if he stays out of trouble, which, that could go either way. I think we say this every year. Is this the year that Chase Elliott finally makes it to the Final 4? I personally think this is finally going to be the year then again. I think I've had Chase Elliott make the Final 4 in my predictions ever since 2018. So, drivers I have eliminated, Ryan Blaney. When that team is cold, they are extremely cold. They haven't really been themselves as of recently. Maybe they can get back on a hot streak like they've shown they can after a cold streak, but I don't know. I mean, I don't see Ryan Blaney getting in. Joey Logano, he's been the 3rd worst Penske car. Let's just say it how it is. Ever since the COVID outbreak, he's just been terrible. He's had a couple stage wins, but I think he's only allowed 2 or 3 top 5s, very little top 10. That team has very little momentum. Though, interesting fact, him sweeping Daytona last year was only the 2nd time in stage history that a driver swept stages at a plate race. The first time was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 2018 at the July Daytona race. But yeah, I don't have Logano making it. I mean, that team has just been, frankly, they've been, for Logano standards, I mean, considering they've been like, I think they fell even as low as 7th in the standings at one point. So, I mean, that team has just been awful in my opinion for Logano's standards. I don't think the crew chiefs, I think he's benefited the least. I don't think he and Paul Wolf really have the best chemistry. Martin Truex Jr., I believe he had just, I think, his 9th straight top 5, which is crazy to think about. That team has been sneaky, just on fire. The question is that going to carry over through the next round, through the playoffs? We've seen that 9th Truex in the 78 or the 19 really pick it up during the playoffs. However, with the new crew chief, with the certain tracks coming up, it can go either way, in my opinion. I think that the hot streak is eventually going to end, and I just think certain drivers are going to get ahead of Truex. And the last driver I have out is Eric Almirola, just because the guys ahead of him, they got more playoff points, they have more experience, they're in this position better. So I don't think Almirola really has the stuff to make it to the Final Four. So my Final Four: Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and Brad Keselowski.
Oh, here we are. I always love playoff predictions. It's one of my favorite times of the year. My Final Four. So my Final Four drivers, obviously, you have Hamlin and Harvick. I think they're too good to not make it. They practically sleep for the first 9 weeks of the year, as long as nothing crazy happens. The last 2 to pick were pretty hard. There's like so many good drivers and teams that aren't quite where Harvick and Hamlin are, but you could still make a case that they've been good enough to make it to Phoenix. Excuse me, I almost said Homestead. Make it to Phoenix. The first of which I have in is Joey Logano. Logano is weird because this year has been a very weird year for the 22 team. There's been times where they were fast in their normal selves, but then they've kind of been really quiet. But I just have a feeling him and that team are going to pick it up when it comes to the playoffs. Very reminiscent of his championship season a couple of years ago. Very kind of quiet. You're not really paying attention to the 22 car that much, and here we are. So I think he could definitely make it. I think at least one Penske car does make it, and I have him being the one. And then probably the scariest pick of all is I've stuck with this since January. I try to stick with my predictions, even though there's times I do waver away from them. But Kyle Busch is somehow going to find a way to make it with a shot. Here's why. Kyle Busch, I think at some point he's got to win. At some point. Round 1, he doesn't have to get that done. He just needs to – if he can be half of what Kyle Busch can be, he can make it through the first round. Second round, you just got to be able to survive. You go home to Las Vegas. He usually runs fairly well at Vegas. Talladega, he's got to survive. I mean, he was leading a big chunk of Daytona last night before he got wrecked. He usually can run all there. The Roval is the real iffy for me. Kyle Busch had a phase in his career where he was a really good road course driver, and it's not that he's terrible now. He just really hadn't been had a hot streak on him. But I think if Busch can make it, you can obviously make an argument that he can put himself. I think that he could go out and win Martinsville, the last shot for him to make it to the Final Four. I think he's going to be in a position to where he's going to have to win to make it to the Final Four. So there you go. That's my Final Four: Harvick, Hamlin, Logano, and Kyle Busch. I have to stick with my prediction I've had for 7-8 months. The drivers out, I'll make it quick because I know Armani's got some places to be here in a little bit. Keselowski, the playoffs just doesn't always fit Keselowski very well. I've got him rolling. Chase Elliott, as much as I hope they can do it, that team is still a little bit of a miss. They're not championship ready, and this is where that team is continually to have problems every year. This is where they really got to take that next step. Ryan Blaney, very similar to Chase Elliott at this point. Just don't know if that team is ready for that next step. And then Martin Truex Jr., I predicted from the beginning of the year that when they lost Cole Pearn, this team would be a step behind. They clearly have been. I think that translates to the playoffs. They're not going to be 100% as strong as they have been with Pearn and Truex combo. The Final Four: Harvick, Hamlin, Logano, Busch. And we'll make this quick for it, guys. Who do you have for your championship prediction in 2020?
Dennis Hamlin. Absolutely. He has been too close too many times. And if Jimmy made the playoffs, I actually made a side bracket of it was Harvick, Hamlin, and Jimmy, like 2010, how it played out 10 years later, how that would have been. But I think Denny has been denied way too many times, so let it happen one more time. Won in a clutch performance last Phoenix, not last race at Phoenix, but the last fall Phoenix race. Had to win to get in, I believe, ended up doing it and didn't end up winning the championship. But he put himself in the absolute best position, and he's going to continue to do that. I don't think anyone is going to stop this man.
I got Dennis the Menace Hamlin taking the dub for one reason only. I think Chris Gabehart is too good of a crew chief to not win a championship. 12 wins in less than 2 seasons with Hamlin. I always say that, I've been saying it for a long time, I think Chris Gabehart is going to get Denny Hamlin that championship. I think they're more motivated than ever. They've arguably been better than they were last year. So I got Dennis the Menace, Denny Hamlin, taking home the Brian France Cup.
The Brian France Cup.
It is about time that it happens. It's in due time. Everybody knows that this driver has been waiting to get this done. Championship prediction. Finally, after all these years, Kevin Harvick becomes a 2-time champion.
Oh, troll.
I said last year, and even though Denny Hamlin is trying to put a kink into it because he is better this year than last year.
Yeah.
I said last year, if he does not win it, he's not winning a championship. And I just, even though, of course, I didn't expect this year to come, I just think it's going to be one of those two, which, you know what this really means is that they've done all this race winning just for a guy like Martin Truex or Logano to win a championship. But Kevin Harvick is going to go there. They're going to lock it down at Phoenix. Rodney Childers is going to get it done again, and Harvick will be a 2-time champion. So I like it. I love how he totally did not pick the favorites to win the championship.
That's how else is it going to be?
I thought you were going to stick with Kyle Busch.
No, I think I did predict him going back to back, and that's where sometimes I waver. I'm going to go that somehow he makes it to the Final Four, but I just if he wins the championship this year, I mean, I don't know what to expect anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yep, well,
Hey, if he wins the title this year, you can say that they're going to be like, 2 out of his 3 championships are illegitimate.
Yeah, of course. Well, I know I think Armani's got somewhere he's got to be here in just a couple of minutes. It's been a good show, long show, but a productive show. Always fun making predictions. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Obviously, you can find Ben at Being the NASCAR Guy. I believe that's the correct tag right there.
Yep.
Armani at Velocity XTC. Obviously, I'm at NASCAR_opinion. And appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks for a great show, and I'll let you next time. See you.
I'm a happy boy.
Mike the NASCAR man.